Exodus 3, 1-7, as well as verse 10. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up, so Moses thought, I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up. When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called him from within the bush, Moses, Moses, and Moses said, Here I am. Do not come any closer, God said. Take off your sandals, for the place you are standing is holy ground. Then he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. At this point, Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt, and I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So now go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. I'm excited about our chapel today, and I will be brief in my introduction of Dr. Glenn, both professionally and personally. Dr. Glenn is a vice president for community life and our chief diversity officer. He's the author of Critical Condition, Black Males and Multiculturalism in Higher Education. He is a faculty member at Warner Pacific College and has been a faculty member at a few other institutions here in Portland. He is a frequent lecturer around the country. Personally, Dr. Glenn is refreshingly a profoundly and productively discontent person. He is profoundly and productively discontent with American society as it marginalizes those that are most vulnerable and in need. He is profoundly and productively discontent with the church because we either have not or cannot speak to the needs of those that God has sent us to serve. He is profoundly and productively discontent with Warner Pacific College and wants us desperately to live into our mission. He is profoundly and productively discontent with Jess Bielman. This is a person who has spurred growth in me. He has exposed and given me the tools for the change of heart and the perspective evolution that I have needed in order to be better at my calling to serve Jesus Christ in this place and the world.
Welcome. How y'all doing? I'm gonna try that one more time. Welcome. How y'all doing? I'm gonna take you back 20 years. 1994. Raise your hand if you were not born in 1994. Okay. The year is 1994. Nas, who you just saw on the screen, drops what is known to some in the hip-hop circles as one of the most influential albums of our time. It was called, what was it called? No, that was the name of the song from the video. What was the name of Nas's album in 1994 that was critically acclaimed? Illmatic. Illmatic. Who was that? There you go, I see you. So in 1994, Nas drops this critical LP called Illmatic. This is about the time what was considered the golden era of hip hop. It was coming to an end. And the golden era of hip hop was an interesting moment because it was really looking at the conditions, the struggles, the social fragmentations of black and brown people disproportionately located in urban spaces. So there are a lot of narratives, a lot of perspectives, a lot of ways of seeing the world, a lot of voices, a lot of lived experiences and lived realities that they were not getting the attention that they deserved. So there are a lot of people that gravitated towards this kind of post-industrial art form that existed in de-industrialized space called hip-hop, and they had multiple narratives to talk about their lived experiences and lived realities. And at that moment, that there were multiple narratives from Compton, from New York, from just all parts of the country. Nas out of Queens, New York, dropped something at 18, 19 years old called Illmatic. And it was a complex analysis of his lived conditions coming out of Queens, New York, but also emblematic of so much suffering that was going on in society. A lot of critics, a lot of fans, a lot of supporters said this is one of the best albums ever. But something starts to happen when you have a message. It oftentimes gets commodified. by particular interests, corporate interests to be exact. And so your story, your lived experience, your lived reality no longer relates to the suffering of the people. It just becomes negotiated in spaces where it can provide profit for institutions. And so what started to happen in Nas's journey is he came out with Illmatic, changed the game, changed the way people started to look at the world, right? From a cultural aspect and from a lived experience in marginalized spaces. But then slowly but surely, corporate interests gobbled up Nas, gobbled up his story, gobbled up his interests, and made him into something that he was not, right? Something that was just a pathological, one-dimensional, and monolithic representation of suffering. So he had to try on different identities. The drug dude, the crass materialism dude, all these different pathologies that are disproportionately represented in vulnerable communities. Nas was wrestling with this. And so he started to see more albums selling. He was getting more money, but his message started to decline. And what he said is, in 2001, he said, I'm gonna come up with another album called Stillmatic. And I'm gonna go back to the basics. No more of the crass materialism. No more of, I think I need to perform a particular drug persona because that's what will get me money. No more of the objectification of women where you're just looking at their bodies as objects and receptacles for your own desire. He said, all I need is one mic. And what's so interesting about that song is when Nas starts off, he's like in this basement, and the beat is very melodic and slow, bringing you back to the basics. But then the beat picks up and there's all this noise that gets cluttered, but he slows you back down and says, what? All I need is one mic. So allow me to share a metaphor with you and advance a proposition with the small amount of time that I have. Because the metaphor that I'm going to use of the one mic and the proposition that I'm going to advance is that the gospel of Christ, the transformative gospel of Christ, is your one mic. I'm going to say that again. The transformative power of the gospel, the real spirit of Christ, is your one mic. Do not be seduced by the noise, the doctrine, the tradition, the artificial baselines that dominant culture will evaluate you upon so you can reflect their own interests. The real gospel of Christ is about that one mic. It's about love. It's about justice. It's about mercy. It's about grace. It's about redemption. It's about love again, because you can't do transformative work without love. So anytime you find yourselves, folks, in this room with the noise of the day that's getting you away from your meaning, your being, your purpose, I don't care what it is. It could be addictions. It could be drugs. It could be sex. It could be alcohol. It could be greed. It could be abuse that you're trying to figure out. It could be crass materialism. It could be dislocation, fragmented relationships. Your parents not there. When you get in that moment, all you need is one mic. One mic. And I want to tell you all today, if you do not know this, there is a calling on everyone's life that is in this room. There's a reason why you're at Warner Pacific College. There is a method to this madness of life. There is a way that this one mic can help you wrestle with the contradictions, the paradoxes, the absurd realities. But you have to be diligent. You have to keep your eyes open. You have to pray. You have to meditate. You have to think. You have to walk alongside people who can breathe into you. And they will get you to that one mic. Are y'all still with me? So let me tell you a little something, because I always get accused of not sharing my story and hide behind intellectualism. So I'm going to intersect some intellectualism with some story and some purpose. Remember, I told you all that you all have a purpose. You all have a calling. Some people figure out their callings earlier. Some people figure out their callings later. But I promise you, you will all figure out your purpose. And if you listen to anything that I have to say, I would really challenge you. I implore you to use the time that you're at Warner to make sense of your meaning, being, purpose, calling, vocation, etc. And use the tools and the structures that we have in place, small groups, the classroom, extracurricular activities, co-curricular activities. Use these as models. So let me just tell you this. Let me give you a little bit of insight into Dr. Glenn. I wanted to, I was really confused. I'm like, should I start off with Nas, that one mic? Or should I get with Jay's public service announcement to allow me to reintroduce myself? Because I have to do that every year. I got to reintroduce myself. Every year, folks is coming in at 18, and every year I'm getting older, so I got to reintroduce myself to folks. But let me tell you this. This is a personal story. So I was born in Los Angeles. My family moved here when I was 2, so Portland is my home. But when I was 9 months, I spent a lot of time in the hospital as a baby. And at 9 months, my mom had to take me to the hospital because something was going on with my stomach and my intestines. And my mom knew it was serious. So she rushed me to the hospital. I had to stay in the hospital for like a month or something like that in 9 months. And my mom, she tells me this story how just to see her 9-month-old baby in the hospital for about a month, you know, and she's living in the hospital, my dad's living in the hospital trying to figure out what's going on with me. She recalls this time where the doctor comes out, and I'm about 10 months at this time, and looks at my mom and says, he's not gonna make it. And we need to tell you that. You need to start thinking about what does that mean for your family. He is not gonna make it. And so my mom bursts into tears. She breaks into tears and she runs out of the hospital room by herself. My dad is still there. And so my mom, as she tells me the story, she's a wreck. She's in tears. She's broken down. She's crying. And she says a woman grabs her hand, who she doesn't know, and says, he is going to make it. And not only is he going to make it, there is a calling on his life, and he will be doing some great things in this world. So my mom kind of perks up a little bit, still distraught, still not believing the situation. She runs in to tell my dad that I just talked with the woman. She gave me some encouragement. He's gonna be fine. I need you to meet this lady. Takes my dad out. And of course, as the story goes, the woman's not there. No one knows who she is. Nobody can recall who this woman is. So my mom tells me this story. She shares this with me. She sits me down and says, son, there's a calling on your life. God has purpose for you. And you're gonna run, but you're gonna come back to it. What do you think about this call on your life? I was like, I don't know, Mom. I'm 5 years old. Can I get another bowl of Fruit Loops? I'm watching cartoons, right? This is true. I have no idea what purpose means. So this is what starts to happen in my life. Now I'm 8 years old. My dad decides that he has other things he's concerned about other than the family, and he decides to peace out on us. Peace out. Now what's interesting about that is I'm 8 years old. My older brother, I have 2 brothers, older brother and younger brother. I'm 8, my older brother's 10, my younger brother's 2. My dad decides to peace out. We're living in Northeast Portland off of Northeast 20th and Deacon at the time. And my dad just pieces out. And people always ask me the story about my dad, like, because I got a chance to see my dad from 0 to 8. And people always ask me, were you sad? You know, were you distraught? Were you a mess? I'm like, absolutely not. I was actually glad to see him go. I saw the dysfunction, I saw the issues, and he actually gave me the blueprint of what not to be and what not to do. So I didn't have time for regrets. I had time to continue moving on, right? At 8 years old. But what's interesting about this is, think about this. I'm 8 years old. I think it's, I don't want to date myself, but I think it's like 1981, somewhere around there. It's like 1981, I'm 8 years old, staying off of Northeast 20th and Deacon. My mom has never in one calendar year made more than $35,000 a year. She now has 3 boys in the early 80s, right before Reaganomics, right before the introduction of crack cocaine, trying to make sense of this world and make sense of herself being dislocated, coming to Portland, trying to raise 3 boys. And so what does she turn to? One mic. She turns to one mic. So this becomes the context and the condition that I'm shaped by, what we call now the black church. And I wasn't a theologian at 8 years old. I wasn't negotiating how we understand institutionalized expressions of religiosity or any of those things. But what I did know is whatever my mom was going through, there was something that she was retreating to, something that she was going to, something that that was preparing her to understand what was going on. And that started to become my one mic. So I was shaped through that tradition. And it was a prophetic calling, a prophetic tradition. We come to church, the Spirit is real, it's moving upon people, folks are speaking in tongue. There's all kind of just performative and expressive ways to show how God is moving in people. And I said, you know what? This may work. But something started to happen as I started to get older. So I was 8, now I'm at 16, 18, somewhere around there. I'm coming to church every Sunday. I'm going to Vocation Bible School. I'm going to YPWW. Y'all don't know nothing about no YPWW, young people willing to worship. I'm going to all these kind of things, and I'm seeing the Spirit. I'm feeling the Spirit. I'm seeing what God is trying to do in the lives of so many people. But what I found so challenging, everybody, I want to tell you today, is that all the stuff we were talking about in church, all the issues that we were trying to, address, I just continue to see, with regard to my community and with regard to the people that made up the church, the gaps between the suffering and the have-nots continue to increase. So I'm like, how can people be praying this much, giving their offering, knowing they broke, and they still trying to give their 10%? Come to church every day, get in that prayer line, profess all these things and knowing that God's making a movement in their life, but the suffering is getting worse, not only in the community surrounding us, but in the church. Divorce is higher than ever. The men who were present when I was 8 are no longer present when I'm 18. And I'm going, something's got to give. Something's not right. And the reality of it is that the stuff that I'm starting to be concerned around my black identity, around the issues that are disproportionately affecting my community, I'm not hearing a lot about that in church anymore. And as a matter of fact, I'm starting to think that this is some scheme that seduces me into believing that I should endure suffering and do nothing about it because there's some metaphorical or even metaphysical promised land on the other side. It didn't kind of work for me. So what did I do? I said, you know what? We need to be concerned about who we are as black people. We need to be concerned about our identity. And we need to be concerned about the issues that are disproportionately affecting folks and communities that look like mine. And connect that to a bigger context of like, our struggle is locked in arms with everybody. And so I kind of pushed back on the organization of the church because when I would challenge them, it wasn't always well received. I wasn't getting hit with one mic. I wasn't getting hit with the transformative power of the gospel. I wasn't getting hit with love. I wasn't getting hit with grace. I wasn't getting hit with redemption. I wasn't getting hit with mercy. I was getting hit with doctrine, tradition. That did not work for me. And of course, now I'm 20, I'm 21, and I'm in college, and the question becomes, this is why college messes people up. Because you get too smart, and then you want to question God. So I'm not questioning God. I'm questioning religion. I'm questioning doctrine. I'm questioning traditions. And I'm really asking a true question. If we are supposed to respond to the least of these, and we got this whole suffering congregation, we got this whole suffering in society, why is this message not doing something to address those folks? So I kind of was like, blank church. Fill in the blank, right? I'm like, forget it. I'm not going. I'm not going to church anymore. But I still have the Spirit in me, and I still know how to calling in me. So what did I do? I said, you know what? I am going to spend time in college figuring out what's going on, as Marvin Gaye asked so eloquently back in the day. Y'all don't even know who Marvin Gaye is, but we'll keep it going. So he asked the question, what's going on, right? So I said, you know what? I'm going to spend intellectual time. I'm going to spend my intellectual work trying to discover and understand what are the conditions that are creating the marginalization that communities like mine disproportionately confront. And guess what? Again, I'm also going to bring critique to bear on some social structures like church. So I'm going through this process, and I was going down a very interesting route, Michelle. I just want to tell you. I was going down a route of not justice, of not inclusiveness, of not what we call diversity and multiculturalism and all that. I was going down a route of intellectual black radicalism. And I was okay with that. So I'm reading everything. If you know anything about racial identity development, there's this third phase called immersion, where you want to surround yourself with everything that relates to your particular identity. You want to eschew anything that you think is going to stop the movement of your particular group. But if you also understand the psychology of that, it's short-sighted, it's myopic, and it will never get you to maximize your potential or self-actualize. And it definitely has nothing to do with the gospel. But that's where I was at as a college student. And so I'm at this place of like, you know what? I'm going to be about this radical black politic. Nobody else is really being concerned about it, so let me lead that charge. And so what started to happen is, you can't run from your purpose. You can't run from your calling. As my mom always tells me, you can delay it, you can slow it down, but it's ultimately gonna happen. So here I am, I'm a graduate student, I'm a doctoral student, and I'm thinking and I'm writing about all things associated with how to make black America better, how to look at justice from the lens of black folks who have been historically marginalized, how to look at the disparities that exist, right? How to recenter those voices that have not been heard and been quieted. And I was not concerned at this moment, right, with diversity, with multicultural, none of that stuff. But guess what God said? I'm going to complicate your life, and you're going to fall in love with somebody who is not black. Holla at your boy. What you gonna write about now? What you gonna write about now? So at that moment, life became real intellectually, because I couldn't be a contradiction. And I know Warner loves the word paradox. I didn't even want to be a paradox. So now here I am, this radical black dude with like 4 chapters written in an upcoming book on like why black folks need to stay together. And I'm in love with somebody who's not black. I had to go back to one mic. I had to go back to the scriptures. I had to have God really breathe into me. And that, ladies and gentlemen, became really the framework and the politic of how I approach this work. Because let me tell you something, if you're advancing anything that only has specificity or relevance to a particular group, you no longer have a gospel or justice, you have a dogma. And I was advancing dogma in the spirit of social change, in the spirit of all things that sounded so eloquent when I could lecture. But I was advancing dogma. And so what I want to say to you all today at this moment in time is that the real work of diversity, the real work of multiculturalism, the real work of the gospel, right? It has relevance and applicability for everybody, but it does have intentionality and focus on the least of these. There's another video I want to play. I have no context for this except for just play it and we'll let it talk, and then I'll close in about, I don't know. Time flies when you're up here, so I got like 4 more minutes. So play this video, I'm gonna riff on this, and then I'm gonna pass the mic to Lance and his beautiful wife and let them get busy, but I'm gonna close after this video. Can you play that? I was at that moment. You can't tell me nothing. Wait till I get my money right, then you can't tell me nothing, right? I have 2 minutes, and I wanna tell you all, I use hip hop in a very interesting way. I don't use hip hop in a way to consume the performative aspects of pathologized representations of blackness. I use it as an intellectual framework that subverts. I'm gonna say that again. I use it as an intellectual framework that subverts mainstream notions of what is and what's possible. So when I saw that Kanye a long time ago, Kanye to me, pre-Kim Kardashian Kanye, gotta be very clear, there is evolution in life. Some good, some not so good. But that Kanye, right? That's third album Kanye, Graduation Kanye. I felt that he was really emblematic to how I was trying to figure out the world. Really complex, representation of blackness. He said, I had a dream that I bought my way to heaven, but when I woke, I spent that on a necklace. Really kind of grappling and wrestling with the tensions of what does it mean to try to live this spiritual life, but also being consumed by the realities of your day. And I want to tell you all this before I close. There will be moments in your day, moments in your life, moments today, moments tomorrow, where you feel that you can no longer deal with the absurd contradictions that life is throwing at you. You're feeling like you may be losing your way, losing your path, or losing your focus. And I promise you, the God that I serve, the God that is present in all of our lives, if we admit it or not, will never, never he will not let suffering have the last word. And so, do one thing for me outside of saying what's up to me every time you see me. When you find yourself in that condition, in that predicament, questioning everything around you, dealing with those tensions, remember, all you need is what? Thank you very much. Lance?